welcome to the first edition of the Alfa Romeo Driver podcast. I'm Guy Swarbrick, and over the next couple of weeks we're going to be talking to figures from around the Owners Club and the wider Alfa Romeo community. In next week's episode we'll be talking to some competitors from the Alfa Romeo Owners Club Virtual Racing Championship, but for this first episode we're going to get to know the club's newest board member, David Faithfull. Welcome, David.
Thank you. Hi.
So we'll come to your role on the board in a moment, but this isn't your first role in the club, is it?
No, I've been the MiTo Registrar for over 3 years now. So that was kind of my baptism of fire, as it were. So I've been one of the registrars. I've met some of the board at events and gatherings and so on. I didn't really know the board, but I'd become familiar with some of the members and certainly familiar with how the club operates, and you kind of get to see that as a registrar.
So you clearly love the MiTo and you've thrown your heart and soul into developing a community around the car, but the MiTo wasn't your first Alfa either, was it?
No, my first Alfa was a 1987 Sprint Green Cloverleaf, and I bought that in 89, so I was a trainee computer programmer, and a colleague of mine had a beige Sud, and I don't remember seeing an Alfa Romeo in real life until that Sud, and I kind of fell in love, and I spent the next year saving up, and got my first black Sprint Green Cloverleaf. It was fabulous.
Nerds must think alike, because I was a trainee systems analyst and my first car was a Sprint Veloce.
Well, there you go then.
So we get to August, September last year. The board opens nominations for new board members, and you've clearly got far too much time on your hands. So what on earth prompted you to volunteer to do something else?
Yeah, it's well, so I'll give you my answer. I'm not sure if this is the truth or if I've made this up in my head to justify doing it back then, but I just felt like I could contribute. I think I've got a real passion for Alfa Romeo, a real passion for our club now. I didn't have that years ago. It's kind of a recent thing, and I just wanted to add value. I wanted to contribute, wanted to make a difference. I felt that I could, and truthfully, I did sort of figure that if I can't, or if it doesn't work out, it doesn't matter. I'll still stay a member. I just step back awkwardly. But yeah, so far I think I have been contributing, and I think I have been adding bits of value, which truthfully is what any member of the board can do, isn't it? You can either be a sort of a sedentary observer, or you can be proactive and roll your sleeves up and get involved, and that's what I've tried to do.
But presumably, if you felt you had a contribution to make, there were areas that you either felt that the club wasn't doing things that it should have been doing, or wasn't doing things as well as it could be.
I guess so. I think I certainly didn't go into it thinking the club's terrible, I must go in and fix these issues. I wasn't in that mindset, but I was probably, as part of the registrar role, sort of conscious that the online world is an area where we need to move forward on. Our technology broadly looks kind of the same as it did 10 years ago. And my experience with the registrars are different from sections. Sections are kind of geographically focused. So getting members of a section together is relatively easy, but a register is all over the UK. So it's almost impossible to get your register together. So you have to think of new and innovative ways of doing that online. And so certainly the first year of being a registrar, I put a lot of effort into how can I make our members feel they're part of the register, even if they live 400, 500 miles away. And so the only answer to that really is doing it online. So I did think there was space for improvement in our online world. But yeah, I didn't go into it with a long list of, things that needed to be fixed. I went into it with a very open mind and a view that I think I can probably contribute. Let's find some areas where I can add value, so I've sort of ended up with doing bits of online, but I'm also involved in several other aspects as well. So I'm not stuck in the nerdy corner.
So you joined the board around October, November, which was about the time the part service was suspended. Can you tell us a bit about what happened there?
Yeah, it was certainly an interesting time. You've got to remember that we launched the parts service specifically to obtain, retain, and sell hard to find parts for Alfa Romeo so that members can keep the cars on the road. So, in concept, brilliant idea. And we invested quite a large sum of money in new old stock parts and new parts that came from dealers who wanted to shift stock and from dealers who were closing and so on. So we started off with a concept that should work really well for members. And then we were sort of hit with a perfect storm, really, because around about that time, HMRC said, you're a not-for-profit business. You can't just be selling parts willy-nilly. You can only really sell parts to your members. Otherwise, you jeopardize your not-for-profit status. And financially, that would be, disastrous for us. And then around about the same time, you've got to remember a big cost of running a parts service is you've got thousands of parts. You've got to store them somewhere. So we were paying X amount a month on parts storage, and then the parts storage facility doubled their prices overnight. So we were hit at the same time with a demand from HMRC that you can only sell to members, at the same time as the storage facility doubled all of their pricing with no notice. And so we were faced with this awkward decision of, well, okay, we can change the model to only sell to members, but that will reduce the volume of sales, which is fine. We didn't go into it to make money. We went into it to have parts available for members in the future. But of course, the person running the parts service, they were paid out of commission. So if we reduce the potential audience or customer base, they get paid less. How do we make this sustainable? How do we store the parts and still break even? So yeah, it was kind of this really weird situation where several things all happened at once, and we were left in a position where we couldn't find a way of making the business break even, let alone make any money. I mean, we was really risking a lot of money, of members' money, by maintaining the service as it was. So we took the decision that it's a complicated thing. We can't risk falling out of favour with HMRC. We can't leave the parts where they are because we couldn't afford the monthly run rate. And so we had to sort of postpone the parts service, move the parts into a far more cost-effective place. And we're going to have to go back to the drawing board and work out what to do. But whatever the solution is, we need something that's compliant with HMRC. We'll only be able to sell to paid up members. We're going to need someone to run it. And then how do you do that if it's commission only and you're not selling that much? So yeah, there's a number of conflicting sort of drivers and objectives with this. We're absolutely determined that it's a good idea. We should do it. We have invested in the parts. We need to make it work. We just haven't quite worked out what the solution is for it. And truthfully, we were going to agree the way forward a few weeks ago. And then, of course, we're in this strange worldwide situation at the moment. So it's just been paused at the moment. So yeah, awkward time to join, but equally, like everything, I think I contributed a bit to it in terms of it's the right decision to pause things at the moment, because the worst case is we just hemorrhage a load of money and fall out of favour with HMRC, and then that would just be disastrous.
So you probably weren't expecting that when you joined. Is there anything else that surprised you in your first 6 months or so?
I think in terms of what surprised me, so we wanted to do a membership survey, which we did around Christmas. I have to be honest, I thought that might come back with most organisations, most companies, most clubs. You'll have 70% very satisfied because they're kind of happy to be part of something. And then, there'll be 20 or 30% who are, sticking around because they want to, but actually they'd rather you were better and so on. So I sort of expected more mixed reviews. Overwhelmingly, the feedback was positive. And what it showed me was actually we're not rubbish at managing our club. We're pretty good. We've just sort of become a bit static, and those were the sorts of comments that came back on the survey. So I think in terms of, was I surprised at other things? I think the survey was hugely positive. It showed us that we're doing okay, but we've got to push forward in some areas. And I guess the only other surprise was that I suppose my perception of the board was they were very part-time and not fully engaged and what have you. And the reality is that most of the members of the board are kind of just like me. They're really, really proactive. They're really keen to keep on top of things. People like John Timms, who's our finance director, he knows where every single penny goes. And he's, if I want to invest some money, I've got to get past him, and that's really difficult. So, there are people who have as much or more passion about Alfa Romeo and about our club than I have on the board. And, I suppose, I don't want to sound lame, but I was surprised at that. I sort of had an impression or a perception that maybe, they got a bit tired and maybe they weren't fully engaged, but they were. The board is passionate. They are engaged and they are acting and doing absolutely the best that they can. We're all doing the best we can for our members.
Just to pick up on the comment you made there about the finances, do you think the club, generally speaking, spends money wisely? I mean, it's membership fees that we're talking about here.
Yeah, I think so. Generally, absolutely yes. And I mentioned John Timms. I really get on with John because we look at things quite similarly. So, if I want to spend £1,000 on something, we look at things in terms of what's the cost per member then. So that might cost 25p a member. But if I want to spend £10,000, suddenly you're spending £2.50 per member, which is a big chunk out of, between £30 and £40 a year. So I think we're actually very, very careful with the money. The flip side, I suppose, is sometimes I feel we're a bit too careful with the money. So there are some aspects, for example, our website, where we should have invested in new and innovative technology on our website some years ago. But there's a reticence to spend that money because it's members' money, and do our members really want us to spend that money in that area when we could be putting the money into a bigger and better event or a track day or something like that? So yeah, I think honestly, we're very, very careful with spending our members' money. The flip side of that is maybe we're a bit too careful, and maybe there are some areas and perhaps new innovations where we should have invested a bit quicker, or we certainly going forward should look at investing in those areas, because I'm a member, you're a member, the board, we're all members. I don't want my membership money wasted on things that I don't get direct value from. So as long as we're all thinking like that, then investments in the magazine or in sections or in our registers or in our online experience, or all of those things do create a value proposition for our members. They're good investments, and that's kind of the test that I always put things through in my mind is, I'm just a member. Do I want this? Do I want my money spent on this thing? And if I'm comfortable and if I'm happy, because I do care where my 40 quid goes, if I'm happy with it, then probably most members will be happy with it as well. So yeah, I think we're careful, perhaps a bit too careful, but certainly it's not for want of trying really, really hard to protect every penny of our members' contributions.
And we talked a little bit about the survey, but when it comes to that question of would our members want us to do these things, to spend this money in these ways, it's sometimes argued that the board doesn't listen to the membership. Was that your impression before you joined, and has that changed since?
Yeah, truthfully, I suppose that was, I think that was an impression I had. But, I think we need to sort of differentiate between a sort of a general statement of does the board listen? And remember, the board is just a bunch of members. We're all just members. So it's are these members listening to their fellow members? And I think generally we absolutely do. But we need to differentiate that from, the shouty people on Facebook who have a specific grievance or a specific thing they're disgruntled about, where they make a lot of noise, and then the 8 other disgruntled people make a lot of noise, and you know, that can sort of build, and that perception can grow, particularly in the world of Facebook, where you know, if you just glance at Facebook once a week and you happen to see that post, you think we're idiots or we're rubbish. And I just think that there's a real difference between the effort that we make and the amount of listening that we do on a day in, day out basis versus the occasional mistake we'll make or the thing that we miss. And it's not that we're sat in our, you know, ivory tower not listening. It's, I have a business, I have a full-time job, I have a family, I have the Alfa Romeo Owners Club, I'm an admin on Facebook, I try and do stuff for members, I also enjoy my membership and go to events. I'm always looking on Facebook to see what people are saying and see what feedback is. I'm always referring back to the survey, and we're looking at new initiatives, and I feel I'm listening, but I'm listening for a few hours a week around my life. I'm not, you know, 15 hours a day listening to members, trying to ensure that I've met the needs of everyone who wants to shout at me on Facebook. So I think it's just, you know, the caution I'd say is, I believe every member of the board, and certainly I am, and I've no reason to believe anybody else isn't, passionately listening, passionately trying to do what our members want. But we're still just you know, we're not magical, we're not paid, we don't have 10 hours free every day to ensure that we tackle every small thing. What we're trying to do is make sure that we're delivering value, that we're doing new and innovative themes and different things moving forward, so our membership realize that there are other members acting on their behalf, trying to do new and different stuff and deliver value.
So you talked about online presence earlier, and we've just touched on Facebook there. So the club has a significant presence on Facebook. Facebook's a significant part of our online offer, online presence. So we've got the main club group, we've got register groups and pages, we've got section groups and pages. How's all of that coordinated?
Yeah, it's difficult. So Facebook's one of those platforms that it starts off really well, because you think this is really cool, and oh, look at the engagement, and I can talk directly with members, and I can meet friends and what have you. And then you see the sort of darker side of Facebook, which is, wow, he's really shouty and noisy, and oh, he's really angry at me for no apparent reason, and it creates, you know, or it has the potential to create something that you didn't set out to create in the first instance. And I think Facebook's one of those things where we've tried to create, you know, we have our central Owners Club group and page, and then we've spawned section groups and pages and register groups and pages, and overall it sort of works okay. I think truthfully, I think how we coordinate it, we still need to work on. There's just loads of us all trying to administer dozens of groups and pages, and try and maintain a semblance of order, and try and remain positive, and encourage our members' engagement, and so I think, you know, if it was one page or one group, or if we had a business that was a shop and we just had to manage our shop, you know, that would be easy. But we've tried to create an environment where we can proactively engage with everybody in our club and others thinking about joining our club through both generic and general Alfa Romeo stuff and through niche registers and local area sections. And to keep on top of that is just hard work. I think I haven't found a magic bullet that solves Facebook yet, but be assured we are trying very hard to continue that, you know, delivering some value, giving members a platform, allowing engagement and constructive discussion and so on and so forth, whilst also trying to, you know, rein in some of the madness on occasion.
Talking of reining in the madness, I mean, there has been criticism over the last couple of months that the club can be a little bit heavy-handed in the way it moderates the Facebook groups. What's your thoughts on that?
Well, it is really difficult, and I think, as I said, I think that overwhelmingly the majority of people who engage on Facebook are just normal people like us. They like their alphas, they like some alphas, they dislike other alphas, but we can bimble through Facebook and we can scroll up and down and we can enjoy stuff and like stuff and occasionally love stuff. And some of us will share our pictures, share our experiences, engage with other members and constructively comment. And then there's some who just want to set the world on fire. They sort of want to go into one of the AROC groups and they want to be effing and jeffing and poo-pooing someone's modification or being snooty with someone who's perhaps new to the alpha world and is asking a relatively basic question, and finding this balance is almost impossible, and maybe it is impossible, and we're never going to get there. But if our members or people who aren't members yet but might become members, if they want to proactively contribute and be part of our community and be decent and care about how other people feel and help others, brilliant. Yeah, let's do that. But if you're going to come on and swear, or if you're going to come on and be nasty to someone, or if you're just going to be deliberately difficult, then I don't really want you in the community. So it is a really difficult balance. But the people we tend to or the people whose posts we tend to delete, they're either selling some rubbish or they're adding zero value, or they're putting a picture of a half-naked woman in an Alfa Romeo bikini. These are not necessarily the things that we want to be promoted in our community. There are many ways that you can productively and friendly engage with us and with all of our members on Facebook, but they know who they are. If they're just going to be deliberately difficult, then we're going to delete your posts. And if you're persistently difficult, I'm just going to block you from the group, and I make no apology for that. And if they happen to be a member, well, I'm sorry, but it's not a right to be a member of a group that you're abusing, or that you're being really difficult with people on, or you're being nasty, or you're effing and jeffing. So yeah, it is a nightmare. I'm quite sure that I and the dozen or so other admins will continue to be told that we're too heavy-handed or what have you, but I swear to God, some of the things I delete are unbelievable. They genuinely are. I would not want my family or friends of mine or members to see some of those things. So I don't care if someone's a bit cross at me because I deleted a really vulgar post, that's fine. And if that poster, tries to do it consistently or persistently, and I block that person and they get the that's fine. For me, I'm trying to contribute to an overall friendly, happy community with a shared passion and love for Alfa Romeos. And I'm doing my best, as are all the admins. We'll get it wrong sometimes. If we get it wrong and you've got a good case, just message one of us, message one of the admins. I know certainly the board members who are admins we'll say sorry, and we'll backtrack if you've got good evidence and we've just done the wrong decision, and we will do that sometimes. So I'd much rather people contact us and say you've blocked me for no reason, and then we look at it, than them post everywhere else saying, oh, AROC are really snarky with their members, blocking them. That's not what we're trying to do. We're trying to create harmony, and we're going to cock it up sometimes, and that's kind of the reality of Facebook, I think.
One of the findings from the survey last year was that a lot of the members don't use Facebook at all. So what alternatives does the club provide for them?
Well, we have on our website, we have our forum, and the forum, it's like a lot of these forums are fascinating things. Our forum has hundreds of members who log on every so often, once a fortnight or once a month. But they like logging in on occasion. And then we have dozens of members who are on there every minute of every day. So the forum is one platform that is members only. So there's no non-members in there. Everyone in there is a member. And so that is a sort of an alternative. I do think going forward, we're going to have to find some other mechanism, and maybe it's a super enhanced forum or something like that, but we need a members area on our website or through another platform where it's members only. And, you know, at the moment, one of the issues with Facebook is, and I don't want you to think I hate Facebook. I don't. I love Facebook. But one of the issues with Facebook is we allow everybody on there. So we know half our members don't use Facebook. And we know 3/4 of the people in our Facebook groups aren't members anyway. So what we're actually doing is spending a lot of time and effort administering something that only a very small number of our actual members are using. So we do need to find some alternative platform, whether it's members only groups on Facebook or whether it's members only areas on our website. I do think it's a gap at the moment because at the moment, you know, not all members like the concept of Facebook, and not all members are on our forum or choose to use our forum. So there is a gap, and I do worry about, you know, there's a volume of members there who we don't really have online engagement with. And it could be some of those don't want to engage with us online. That's fine, but I worry about those that you know, fallen through the cracks.
What do you say to people who might accuse the club of being largely for older members and not interested in modified cars and those kind of things?
I think the reality is most car clubs tend to have older men in them. And some of that's just a historical thing because we joined them when we were younger and we're now older. Some of it is that, you know, younger people, you may have a car that you love. It may be an Alfa or another thing. You may be living at home with parents, or you're saving up for your first place, or you're trying to get rent money together and so on and so forth. And you just don't have the time, money or space to collect a classic Alfa Romeo and so on. And then as you go through your life, you go through your 20s and your 30s, you hopefully are able to rent or maybe even one day buy a property, and then you're going to drive, and then you might get a garage, and then suddenly you've got some money, and then you retire, and then you can suddenly afford an Alfa Sud or something. So I think it's a reflection of car clubs in general, and it's also a reflection of levels of disposable income and so on. I don't think in fact, I know we don't proactively go out and only recruit older people. And I speak as I feel terrifically old now, even if I'm not that old. But you know, I'm at the point in my life where I can feel I'm starting to dislike modifying cars, and you know, so it was only a few years ago I loved modifying cars and messing about with cars, and you know, it doesn't seem that long ago when I was younger and I spent all my disposable income on modifications to cars. So I think it's a truism that I know from our survey and from our membership database that the overwhelming majority of all of our members are over the age of 45. That's no secret, and I wouldn't try and hide that. That does not mean that we don't encourage and want the younger generation to join our club. You know, if you've got a passion for Alfas, modified or not, you should be a member of our club. You know, you just should be. And I think the more younger folk we get in the club, and the more young people who are modifying their Alfas are in the club, the better the club will become over time. But these things do take time. And I think, as I said earlier, I think over the last decade, when you think about our online presence hasn't really changed that much. We were also slow to get into Facebook, and it feels to me like we're in catch-up mode. So to some of us, the younger community, the modding community, is like this alien planet that we know exists, but we don't really want anything to do with because we don't really understand it. But I think the reality is all of those guys and girls are going to be the future of our club, and we do all get old someday, and we do tend over time to stop modifying and start you know, looking at concours competitions for our cars. So I think there's a number of drivers for this. I don't think it's a deliberate thing. I think it's evolved over time. I think we probably should have made more effort over the last 10 years to attract the younger and attract the modifying community. I don't think it's too late. I do want younger folk to join our club. I do want to see heavily modified Alfa Romeos in our club. and at shows. We just need to find that that way of encouraging the younger generation to come on board with us, because we're not all old farties polishing our Alfa Suds. I happen to be one of those, but not deliberately. I was young once, and I did modify cars once, and I still love looking at modified Alfas and other modified cars. So yeah, it's not a deliberate thing. It's something we do need to address, I guess. I'm not certain how, but I'm always delighted when a youngster joins the MiTo Register and they've modified and lowered their meter, and they're looking after and loving their car. That's all we want, is for people to love Alfa Romeos and love their cars. And if their way of expressing their love is to lower it, to add stripes and so on and so forth, we all did that years ago. We just happen to be old now. But the younger generation are going to be running this club in the coming years. So we've got to be able to be that broad church and accommodate them and welcome them with open arms.
You talked earlier on about, earlier in life, we haven't necessarily got the disposable income that we have later, which is one factor in the demographics. Some other clubs have, multiple levels of membership: gold, silver, bronze membership, free memberships. Is that something that the club's looking at for the future?
Truthfully, no. I think I'm personally dead against that. I think, and I'm happy to be proven wrong on this, but if you look at the other clubs that do that, what they're actually doing is trying to encourage more members. And the way they do that is they offer them something for free, or something for $5 or $10 or whatever, and it gets them in the door. And then they are relatively successful in trying to convert those free members into paid memberships. For me, where this doesn't work is, I believe all members should have the same fantastic value proposition, and we should all have our brilliant magazine, which you edit exceptionally well. We need the same level of engagement on sections, on registers, on our online solutions. We have fabulous partnerships, discount schemes, and so on. I don't think there's space for a reduced level of benefits for a free entry level or a 10 quid membership or something. All of our members need to have the same thing. And I honestly, I believe that really passionately. And I may be proved wrong, but I believe we've got to find the right balance where our membership fee is fair and the value that we deliver is multiples of that. People need to feel that I've paid my 30 quid or my 40 quid, but my God, this year I've had hundreds of pounds worth of value because I did this event, I did that event, I went to that track day, I had this online thing, I went to a dozen meetings with my section, a register put this thing on for us, and the magazine's fantastic. You can't deliver that level of value for free. We all know you don't get anything for free. So, there is a cost of being a member, but in return for that, we all contribute the same fee, and in return, everyone gets a huge list of benefits. And that's my aim, and that's where I think we should be. I'm not a believer that offering differentiated levels of cost with differentiated levels of benefit. I don't think that's a good thing. I think, and maybe we'll lose members that way, but I don't see how we can justify a reduced level of benefits just to get them through the door for free or for a reduced price. That doesn't make sense to me.
Obviously, things are difficult at the moment. We're recording this remotely. There are people locked in their homes. There are people who are still having to go out to work and support the rest of us. But while we're in lockdown, what's the club doing to support the members?
So we recognised very early on that we need to do things differently. We need to behave differently. We need to offer more engagement with members via our online platform. So there's a mixture of things. I think all of our sections now have access to the Zoom conferencing. So ironically, we're here on Zoom recording this podcast, but so all of our sections are able to now do regular video call sessions with all of their members, and you don't need a PC or a laptop. You can do it on a phone, you can do it on an iPad and or what have you. So we're still trying to maintain the engagement with our members through, albeit virtual, but video conferencing for all of the sections. We're also starting, things like this podcast, but also looking at doing virtual presentations. So lots of us have a lot of history and knowledge and insight into topics around Alfa Romeo, around our favorite models, around lots of relevant subject matter that we can share with people. And this sort of thing typically happens, if I happen to be in my local section, I could share it with my local section at a meeting. What we're looking at doing is doing those as more national broadcasts. We're videoing them so people can watch them after the event. And of course, we've got our virtual racing championship, which is, we have to thank you for that because it was your right idea. But, these virtual racing is hugely popular, and it's not for everybody, obviously, but the fact that we're doing online championships, online racing, online hot laps challenges, this stuff it's new to us, but it's really cool. So we're doing a lot of these things like the Zoom, like the presentations, like the video calling, the podcast, the virtual racing. We should be doing this in the next 10 years as well. This isn't something it's something that's come about because we're in lockdown, but it's not something that has to be limited to our lockdown. I think this is opening up a whole new world of our online experience that we hadn't really thought about, but is now becoming obvious that this stuff is genuinely adding value to members, regardless of whether we're in lockdown or not. Of course, it's a bit of a nightmare with no events, but that doesn't mean we can't engage on social media and engage on our own website and so on, to keep up the momentum. We've done things with the website to, put up our photo galleries from the last couple of years and put videos on there on our YouTube channel. So again, I think we can be doing more. It's sort of caught us all by surprise, and I don't think we're alone in the car club community, but we're very much doing our best. I think what we're creating is a model that can work outside of lockdown as well. I think we'll look back and we'll say, wow, that was for all the wrong reasons, was a great introduction to how the Alfa Romeo Owners Club can become smarter online.
So it looks as though we might be at or at least near the peak of this crisis. Is it too early for the club to start thinking about what might happen as the lockdown starts to ease?
No, it's not too early. We are thinking about it. I think the issue we have today, as we record this, is we've got no clue what's going to happen tomorrow or next week. So we're certainly putting the thought to how we ease ourselves out of lockdown. Again, our area sections is kind of our sort of primary contact point with members. So how we start to re-engage is going to become very important. And I suspect, I don't think pubs are going to open very quickly, but that doesn't mean we can't ease ourselves back into, 15 members and their cars couldn't meet up in the Yorkshire Dales or couldn't meet up on Dartmoor. There's a lot of things that we can do that would meet the criteria, ensure we maintain robust levels of distancing and still enjoy our cars and still have a chat with people. So yes, we are thinking about it. I don't know, when we're going to be back to normal. I think it's months and months before we're truly back to normal. And towards the, in the latter half of the year, if we can run events, we absolutely plan to. Postponing National Alpha Day was a nightmare for us for lots of reasons and for our members. So if we can do an event or two before the end of the year, we absolutely will. But I think we'll start re-engaging via the sections first, and we'll do some trials in terms of how we can get people to enjoy each other's company at a distance and each other's cars gradually over time, and see how we get on.
So my final question, if there were 3 things you could do to improve the club today, what would they be?
That's tricky because it depends what you mean by improve the club. There's 100 things I'd like to do to improve the club, and by that I mean deliver more value to members. I think we've done a lot recently. So we've tried to improve the website. We've tried to improve our partnerships and discount schemes. Ironically, we did some fabulous partnerships with hotels and cottages.com, and things completely went pear-shaped pretty quickly. So, but we're setting ourselves up for the next year or so. I think 3 things I'd like to do better. I think we've got to recruit more younger people. We've got to get our online presence better and smarter. And I know I'll be, pushing against an open door here, but we've got to be able to expand on our magazine content. I know that if you put an article in the magazine, 10 photos and 3,000 words end up on the cutting room floor, we need to get that online. We've got to find a way of not only just making the website better is interesting, but whatever. It's all about content. If we can get more content to our members, so our magazine drops, and then they can look at the magazine. Once they've read the magazine, they can go online and see additional features, the bits that didn't make it into the magazine. That's really powerful, I think, to members. So yeah, I think they're probably the 3 things. I don't know how quickly we can do those things, but I am hugely passionate about all of the above. And if I had to sort of commit to you what I spend the most energy on in the next 12 months, it will be those things.
Brilliant. Well, thanks for taking the time this afternoon, and good luck with the role.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it.
Thanks, David. Well, I hope you enjoyed the first episode of the Alfa Romeo Driver podcast from the Alfa Romeo Owners Club. As I said earlier, next week we'll be interviewing some of the competitors from the Alfa Romeo Owners Club Virtual Racing Championship. So until then, stay safe.